Chinese media recently released an article analyzing America's geographical location advantages, which are no longer advantages. America has few neighbors and a small surrounding population, while China surrounded by 14 countries, with a population of several billion people, suitable for economic development. At the end of the article they affirm the reason why America needs war to consolidate its interests. The article is titled "Root is the geopolitical game between China and the United States has reached an inflection point." Here is the content. Please listen and give us your comments below. At the beginning, the author writes, "In the past, I often saw people say that America has a good geographical location, has no strong neighbors, has oceans on all sides, has vast plains inland, and is simply a chosen country. But in reality, good and bad are always relative concepts and will change over time. Before the advent of intercontinental missiles and economic globalization, the geographical location of the United States indeed had great advantages, which could cause worldwide conflicts in North America. Then, from the other side, sure, look at fire and gain benefits, but after entering the era of trade globalization, its geographical location gradually revealed fatal shortcomings. If America goes downhill in the future, its geography will be an important factor. First of all, there are too few neighboring countries, which has greatly weakened the United States' economic radiation ability and is easily isolated by the Eurasian continent. The United States is mainly surrounded by two countries, Mexico and Canada. The total population of Mexico is 129 million and the total population of Canada is 40 million, which means that the population of the entire United States that can have the most economic radiation is only 169 million. This means that even if the United States wants to build a North American economic circle, it does not have many partners. On the other hand, China has 14 land neighbors and 6 maritime neighbors. As the local economy develops and we continue to push the economy outward, we will find many countries around us that can help us and form a large economic circle with us. The 5 Central Asian countries have a population of more than 70 million people. The total population of ASEAN is 660 million people. Pakistan and India in South Asia are also China's neighbors, with a total population of more than 1.6 billion people. If you pay close attention, you will see that there is no shortage of markets and people throughout China. Of course, the Indian market is a bit complicated, but even leaving aside India, there are still a lot of people across our country. Having a large neighboring country with a large population is both a good and a bad thing. The key is to look at our own situation. If we are not strong enough, having many neighboring countries around will be a big headache, but on the other hand, if we are the strongest and far ahead of surrounding countries, we will no longer worry about security and will have more room for economic development. For a comprehensively powerful country, having more neighbors is a good thing. This creates favorable conditions for regional economic integration. Therefore, after globalization, the lack of neighboring countries is a disadvantage for the United States, which is the reason why the United States is very afraid of the One Belt, One Road initiative. One Belt, One Road aims to integrate the economies of the entire Eurasian continent. In this case, the country's solitary foreign position means that the United States has been abandoned by the world. If the economy of the entire Eurasian continent does not grow and only the United States can reap the benefits, then the advantage of America's independent position from other countries will be obvious. But if the economies of the entire Eurasian continent are integrated by China, America will not be called a uniquely positioned country, but will be called far from the core of human civilization. Type: having many neighboring countries means there are many opportunities for economic development. In this opportunity there is crisis and opportunity. The key lies in how we grasp it. If we are strong, all countries will come to us. The geographical position of the United States is ruined and it can only spell trouble for the whole world. If Eurasia develops, it will be completely marginalized by the global mainstream economy. Let's talk about another important question. America is surrounded by the sea. The geography of the whole country is almost plain. Which is the most suitable place to live and develop agriculture? But is this really an advantage? Below is a topographic map of the United States. If we look closely, we will see that there are mountains in the United States, but very few. the delta accounts for more than 50% of the country's land area. The arable land area accounts for more than 10% of the world's total area. Such a high ratio of delta and arable land area is rare in the world. For comparison, let's look at the topographic map of China. Isn't it a lot more rugged? The area is also large, but there are relatively few plains, mainly in the east-northeast coastal areas. Does it seem like we are worse than the United States? Actually, no, for reasons I will explain later. After talking about China, let's look at India. India's situation is actually somewhat close to the United States' situation, but not exactly the same. Like the United States, India has a large area of plains and arable land, ranked among the best in the world, has a very long coastline, and is almost surrounded by sea. The only difference is that India has more neighboring countries than the United States. Statuses, but today I want to draw a conclusion, which is a well-founded analysis, that is, the geographical environments of the United States and India, although they have great advantages, also reveal great disadvantages, and the disadvantages are getting bigger and bigger. Don't think that a flat country is a good thing, and don't think that being surrounded by the sea and going out is convenient. In this world, in addition to business convenience, you also have to care about safety. India's history is one of multiple colonizations, waves of foreigners invading India and eventually establishing a multi-layered caste system. Why is India vulnerable to invasion? Because the whole of India is a plain. As long as invaders from the west cross the Hindu Kush mountains and come close to India, then the whole of India will be free of any natural dangers. So, historically, the whole of India was often flattened. For example, if you dive from a nearby plateau and there are plains without any barriers below, do you still think that having more plains is an absolute advantage? This is the reason why somewhere in the east there is a mysterious great country that does not want to get too entangled with India. India is no longer lucky due to its geographical environment. If there are no obstacles around you, it means it's easier for you to get out and easier for others to get in. Why does the US want to build the first island chain to contain China? On one hand is American hegemony. On the other hand, America's surrounding environment is too transparent and there are no natural barriers to prevent it. This has created a dark psychological shadow in the heart of America, always feeling like anyone can hit his homeland in an instant. This is also true to a certain extent. Think about it. If Taiwan comes back without much monitoring of our submarines, we can dive all the way to the US coast and it will be difficult to detect. During World War II, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in the United States and nearly wiped out the entire United States Navy. One of the important reasons why Japan's sneak attack went smoothly is that if the United States did not react, no natural disaster would be able to stop Japan in the short term. This is why Russia is so worried about Ukraine joining NATO, because Eastern Europe is essentially a vast plain. If there is no barrier between Moscow and NATO and the proximity is too close, the Russian capital will not be safe once the conflict begins. Returning to the United States, although the United States has a geographical disadvantage, the surrounding area is too transparent and lacks security barriers. After all, the United States has the greatest military power in the world. Who dares to invade? Invasion of America. But even so, the US still faces huge potential risks in terms of national security and defense. Because now in war there is a completely new model. This model is not the army, but its effects are no less than the army. That is illegal immigration. Illegal immigrants are not shot with a single bullet, but these people are the real thorn in the side of American imperialism. America and Latin America have huge wealth and poverty. People in Latin America can completely change their destiny just by working in the United States. Therefore, almost 600 million people in Latin America want to come America. The total population of the United States is just over 300 million people. If Latin Americans continue to pour in, it will be equivalent to challenging the dominant national status of white America. In the end, the dominance of white America may completely disappear through peaceful evolution. In fact, the current situation is already very dangerous. According to the latest census data, the number of Hispanics in Texas has surpassed the number of non-Hispanic whites. The former group makes up about 40.2% of the state's population, while the latter makes up 39.8%. This superiority is not limited to Texas. In California and New Mexico, Hispanics have long been in the majority, and this demographic advantage is expanding rapidly. The 2020 U.S. Census found that more than a quarter of children in the United States are Hispanic, an increase of more than 1 million in just 10 years, according to data from the Pew Research Institute in the United States. The Hispanic population in the United States reached 62.1 million in 2020, accounting for 19% of the total U.S. population and currently the second largest population group in the world. Around the world, United States, and is likely to become the largest ethnic group in the United States in the next 30 years. Why is American politics so divided today? The core reason is because one mountain cannot accommodate two tigers: the new America represented by Latino immigrants vs the old America represented by traditional whites. The two sides appear to be engaged in ideological battles over many issues, but are they actually competing over which race has the right to define and dominate America? The Democratic Party led by Biden represents the American bourgeoisie, who hope that the United States will have more cheap labor, and at the same time attract Latinos who can create a large number of votes for themselves. The Republican Party piece led by Trump is very offensive with immigrants. While adhering to traditional American white culture, many people discuss the political factor in this issue, but few people realize that the core problem lies in the United States' geographical vulnerability. For example, India's economic development level is far behind China's. Any provincial city in China can be said to be a very luxurious city in India. Let me ask you a question: why haven't we seen Indians smuggling into China on a large scale? The reason is that he is around us. India is still the country with the largest number of poor people in the world. If they go to China to work, Indians' income will immediately increase several times. The reason is, the natural dangers of the Himalayas are like a beautiful string, always warning some people that China's land is not yours to touch. Let's look again at the US-Mexico border. In the image below, Canada is at the top, the US is in the middle, and Mexico is at the bottom, right at the border between the United States and Mexico. On the right, one will find a vast, undefended plain, all flat. One only needs to drill a hole to cross. Even more troubling is the maritime border between the two. Across the Gulf of Mexico lies a vast American plain, and the entire soft hinterland of the United States is inhabited by illegal Mexican immigrants. Mexicans only need to build a small boat to sneak into the United States. Although the failure rate is not small, these illegal immigrants are not afraid of sacrifice. There is a continuous flow, and the basic Americans, it's impossible to stop them. Some people may wonder, is crossing the border illegally dangerous? That depends on how you think about it. In Latin America, 22 out of every 100,000 people are murdered, the highest murder rate in the world. This is the local security environment, especially in Honduras, which is almost the worst country in the world. For Latin Americans, it may not be safer to stay in their home country where gangs are rampant. Since things are miserable no matter what, it's better to try. If people are not afraid of death, why should they be? Therefore, every year a large number of Latin Americans sneak into the US from many angles by sea and land. The truth has proven that America is completely unable to prevent it. This problem is more difficult to solve than war. After all, the United States claims to be a beacon of human rights. It can secretly do many dirty things, but if it is done publicly and on a large scale, it will still affect its image. Therefore, it is difficult for the United States to use force to suppress these illegal immigrants on a large scale and can only use deportation. This puts you in an absolutely passive position on a strategic level, meaning others can continuously attack you, but you cannot make a killing move. The fact that the US did not take the deadly step does not mean that the US government is good, but that the US Democratic Party wants these immigrants in. If the white-dominated Republican Party wants to take this deadly step, the US Democratic Party will certainly personally expose this scandal. Having said that, let's look at China's geographical environment. Looking back now, do you still think that our geographical environment is very bad? China's core economic region is the interior, where all the elites and residents are concentrated. This is equivalent to the most important internal organs. If the internal organs are too transparent, it will not be a good thing. But if you look at the picture above, you will see that there are vast mountains in the southwest and northwest. These mountains perfectly surround the hinterland in the southwest and northwest directions, forming a huge strategic depth. This is like strong bones and flesh on the outside of the internal organs, which closely protects the core organ of the heart. China's maritime window to the outside world is mainly along the southeast coast. If you look closely, you will see that there are many islands at the mouth of our ocean. The United States has formed an island chain. The first and second island chains are based on these islands. Archipelago. If we expel the U.S. military, these islands will no longer be the first and second island chains but will become perfect coastal defense artifacts. After all, as the coast of a large country, empty space is not a good thing. It is best to have many islands around. This will not affect trade but also form a base important strategy when the ocean encounters a war. If there is an island, we can take the lead in intercepting enemy missiles and aircraft carriers at a distance from the mainland coast, preventing war from breaking out on the mainland. If we condense the geographical environment around China, it would look like the image below. The core feature of China's geographical position is like a giant basin. There are natural geographical mountain ranges in the southwest and northwest, in addition to a large number of national defense islands. Off the southeast coast, these islands themselves are actually good things for us. The key is whether they can expel the U.S. military or not. Once China takes the lead, they can form a defense system. Perfect. When you are weak and when you are strong, many factors will change. When we are weak, we feel troubled when we are surrounded by many neighboring countries, but after we become strong, we feel that there are more foreign trade opportunities around us. On the other hand, the same goes for island chains. If we succeed in expelling the U.S. military with our strong military capabilities in the future, these archipelagos will become national defense island chains, protecting coastal economic areas develop in our country, and become an important strategic depth. Japan is an island country near China. Many people do not know that this country has repeatedly caused major climate disasters for our country. Last year's Typhoon Ren hit China hard but turned around and left. That's because of the Japanese island. You see, the Japanese island is shaped like a shield. The storm is originally heading towards us, but if the Japanese island blocks it, will it bounce back? Much of the storm's impact remains on mainland Japan. The storm caused power outages to nearly 90,000 households in central and western Japan. 240,000 people were asked to evacuate and 900 flights were cancelled. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Don't always think that the first island chain is the problem. The key is whether we can regain the influence of these places. Let's take a look at the Japanese septum. That is simply full-level armor, in terms of preventing natural disasters. Japan's shield effectively ensures economic security for China's coastal regions, including the tsunami in Canada and Tonga a few years ago. The impact on China was very small. This does not mean that the shockwave did not hit, but that Japan blocked the tsunami. The wind and sun here are very beautiful, but ghosts are howling all over Japan. America's seemingly free geographical advantage actually resulted in the United States having no natural defenses to protect it. Although dangerous natural disasters cannot stop modern intercontinental missiles, there are some things that are more terrifying than normal intercontinental missiles, which are illegal immigrants who are not military. These people were not a military force, but the destructive power they unleashed on a country was like a powerful barbarian army, causing the fruits of America's economic development to eventually pass into the hands of others. Although China has many neighboring countries, they all have many natural hazards. However, these geographical hazards do not completely hinder economic exchange. They can fight illegal immigration to some extent, certain level, and at the same time there are many opportunities for economic exchange. Obviously, in peacetime, China's geographical position is much better than America's. On the contrary, only during wartime is America's geographical position somewhat advantageous. Geography indicates that China wants peace, while America needs war, so we must stop the evil country of the United States from inciting war. Yes, just the words of the author of the Chinese article. Looking at it from a personal perspective and somewhat subjectively, what about the disadvantages of China? Please let us know your opinion in the comments section below this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can see you in the upcoming video. Goodbye and see you again.